What we need to realize, I think, when we're doing this dance of life, is that that is the way of it. That we do our best to have a full and happy life. And there will be times when it will be full and happy. But the way of it is that one day it will change. And the wise and the healthy response may not be available to us at the time. But over time, if we lend ourselves to that possibility, then what unfolds before us is the turning of the wheel. And it may not show up the way we wanted it to, but to some degree it's none of our business, because life is continuing its process of light and dark and light. I think it's so much fun to come back. You know, I've been gone for a week. Many of you have asked how I'm feeling. Well, I'm doing just fine. I had COVID for a day and a half, and my temperature was over the third day, and I haven't had any problems with it, right? But it's only been 11 days, and so if I don't hug you, don't take it personally. I'm just trying to be your best friend, kind of like Frida's best friend. Today we want to celebrate the equinox. The equinox is, as you all know very well, it's when the days are virtually equal of daylight and nighttime. And it is a beautiful time because, unlike, let's say, the solstice, when one has taken dominance, either so much light or so much darkness, here we're beginning to feel the balance that is kind of like one of the fundamental aspects of nature and of our lives and of actually how to live life in a beautiful way, which is in a sense of balance. As I was kind of preparing for this, I ran across this idea of asymmetrical balance, which doesn't sound intuitive right off the bat. But you could imagine that if I was doing a poster about this size, I could have a ball on this size on this side and a bright red one on this size. And visually, they would balance out, even though the sizes are not the same. That you can make what feels like balance without actually equal parts. And so while that can be true, you can feel imbalanced during those solstice days when there's a whole lot of sun or a whole lot of darkness. We find it much easier when the days are pretty much the same. They're not where they actually are symmetrical. And I want to remind you of something I heard on the radio, which said that maintaining your circadian rhythms, your day-night rhythm inside your body, maintaining those things is very important for your health. Should you mess up your circadian rhythm consistently, you have a 34% chance of dying earlier than you would otherwise. Now, 34 is a lot. Do you know what I mean? All my bad habits don't add up to 34%. And if you have a bright light around between 2 and 3 in the morning, it disrupts your thing so much that you may also have the same problem just from a bright light in the middle of the night. And that since we are indoor cats mostly these days, the light of day is not as bright as it usually is, and the dark of night, because we have lights in our houses, is not as dark. And we are disrupting our circadian rhythm all the time. We're beginning to be out of balance. And so muddying the waters doesn't seem to be a way to get to balance. And it's probably true of a lot of things. Muddying the waters of your thoughts, being half nice, being half angry, probably isn't a way to come to balance either. Years ago, when I was introduced, probably I was about 20 years old, 18, I was introduced to this idea of yin-yang. You know, I was listening to a Chinese calligrapher, and he says, we don't say yin and yang, we say yin-yang as one thing, because it is one thing. It's not yin and then you add some yang or vice versa. It is the way the world is, a combination of light and dark. And if you look at this figure, you'll see that, at least for me, it's going in clockwise direction, and it becomes something else when it's the fullest of what it is. Do you see that? That as it's darkest before dawn kind of thing, that as it moves, the pendulum is swinging, right? And the pendulum, you've watched the pendulum swing, when they get out, they don't stay in the middle. Their forte is going to the edges and coming back and coming back. And the yin-yang is doing that. And yet, while it's over here on its most extreme, while it's darkest, there's a dot of light, and vice versa. And this, I believe, is a lot about how our life goes. So many of you have asked how I was feeling. It was kind of you to do that. But once you've been feeling really good, you go, why are you bothering? Right? But you're remembering the dark moment. And I'm over here in the light moment. Healthy, vibrant, extremely good looking. And and yeah, thank you, honey. And this back and forth is the dynamic of your life. And so many of us, when we feel down, because you're sick or because someone said something cross to you, or you're suddenly without a best friend or whatever, it's hard to remember that the wheel never stops turning. And that the next thing that comes will probably be brighter than it would have been had you not had the darkness. It will at least feel that way. And so wisdom is knowing that things will continue to change, right? That they will go this way and then become that. Now, we have a preference for things going our way, don't we? But if you talk to Michael, the oracle, if you talk to Michael, you realize that part of what's unfolding is not your business. Do you know what I mean? That what's unfolding in life is what's unfolding. And perhaps a very wise stance could be this. Instead of always being out there to change what's out there, and there are, in the whole scheme of life, that's very important. But also there's this idea that what's happening is none of your business. That you are here to learn, to observe, to unidentify enough that you can let what is be as it is. Many years ago, I spent 10 days with Byron Katie, who is one of my big heroes in spiritual life. And one of the questions she would always ask people when they would start to complain about something, whether it was something they thought they controlled or someone else should have done something different, she said, well, is that true? It should not be like that. Now, this is a very profound question, because when you ask, can you absolutely be sure it shouldn't be that way? When you ask that question and you sink into the answer, you realize that only God could answer that question. That only that which understands everything could have a real handle on whether it should be that way or not. And since it is that way, according to Byron Katie, maybe you shouldn't argue with reality. That it is, I don't even want to say this, you know what I'm going to say. It is as it is, right? Wow, I'm tired of that. That as things unfold, they are unpleasant, then they are pleasant. They are your way, and then they're someone else's. They come and they go. And if you're as old as I am, you should be getting that right about now. That the very thing that seems difficult in your life, hasn't it proven so often to be the very thing you needed to transform yourself, to be prepared for the next thing, to awaken in some way. Isn't that often the case? And yet, when we're caught in our foolishness, we are very sure that the way we think we want it is the way it should be. Right? No? I'm not sure you agree with me. Instinctively, I think we definitely want it to be our way. And I definitely think this great industry of self-help and transformation has convinced us that we as human beings should take control of our lives. We should transform things. Is that not right? That we should be out there breaking barriers and becoming somebody. I think it is true, but only as much as it is yin or yang. It's only true part of the time. It's only true when it's true. It's not true when it's not true. You know, I've listened to a few people talk about loved ones dying recently. And there's almost no way to mitigate how much it hurts. That the pain that we feel and the losses we feel cannot be washed away by a good philosophy. They're incredibly deep and painful when people lose someone they love. And they may persist for quite a while. And they may cloud out almost everything. And so it's not within my level of, my grade level, to be able to speak how this might be a transformative moment. Because when you're in that, or you've lost a love that has abandoned you, or some friend has betrayed you, or it's really hard to talk about, well, there will be another day. There will be another day, but it doesn't feel like it. And the sense of loss is what's front and center. And the only thing that might help in that time is to realize that there was a time when it wasn't like that. And so, by probability, there will be a time when it won't be like that again. That you won't be absorbed with just your loss, or your feelings of anger or hurt or fear. That those will pass. And one of the things that can be helpful is to have familiarity with that idea before things happen. Because it's a tough time. And if you're like me, my mind becomes absorbed with what's on it at that moment. But we're speaking here in a place where most of us are not currently at the deepest, most painful points or difficult times. And so I can say these things, but I know if you're not in the place of near neutrality, this may sound glib. But it is also true there are better days coming in some way, somehow. You will find a way through this. And so, when I talk about the balance, if you have loved, you know you will lose. Now, most people don't like it when I say that, I don't think. But you think about it. Let's take two people who meet in their 20s, and they fall in love, and they have an absolutely stunning relationship until they're in their 80s, and then somebody goes. It was baked in from the beginning. So, but we love anyway. We go for it. We do, knowing full well we will at some point be letting go, or they will be letting go of us. One of us is going away, for sure. That's the nature of it. There has not been a person that will not face death. And there's never been a family that has not faced tragedy. It's a great story from the Buddha time. A woman comes to Buddha, and her baby has died, and she's carrying her baby with her everywhere, looking for someone who can bring the baby back to life. And she hears about the Buddha, and she goes to see the Buddha, and she says to Buddha, she says, "Could you please do something for me and bring my baby back?" And the Buddha looks at her and he says, "Look, I tell you what, go and collect salt from a family that's had no tragedy, and bring it back to me, and I will bring your baby back." So she goes to every household in the village, and then she goes to every household in the province, and then she comes back to Buddha, and she says, "Teach me." What we need to realize, I think, when we're doing this dance of life, is that is the way of it. That we do our best to have a full and happy life. And there will be times when it will be full and happy. But the way of it is that one day it will change. And the wise and the healthy response may not be available to us at the time. But over time, if we lend ourselves to that possibility, then what unfolds before us is the turning of the wheel. And it may not show up the way we wanted it to, but to some degree it's none of our business. Because life is continuing its process of light and dark, and light and dark. I have a good friend. Maybe I won't tell you about that. I was reading this article by, a section of the book, Bo Lozoff. You may remember Bo Lozoff. He was a local hero. His book was called "We're All Doing Time." He did a lot of work with prisoners. And some people complain, why weren't you trying to change the prison system instead of just helping prisoners? And he says, well, it turns out, in my opinion, we're all doing time. When we're caught in our minds and can't see beyond it, we're caught in our reactivity and we can't move beyond it. When we have this underlying feeling that something is wrong with life and that we must grab it and bring it to us, and prisoners have been doing it at the cost of other people. But those who are wealthy and those who are living in Beverly Hills have the same problems. We have the same problems. So he taught meditation to those inmates, and he called it in the ashram. Because, if you've ever been to an ashram, well, not all ashrams, but I've been to an ashram or a Buddha practice where you couldn't talk to anybody, you couldn't look at them, you couldn't read, you couldn't do certain exercises like yoga. I felt like I was in prison. And so it's not that different. What they're talking about is they have all day with their thoughts. And so as he would teach them about the wisdom of the ages, through meditation and through classes and stuff, he ran across this guy named Rev Neusom. And Rev Neusom was notorious as a tough guy, had been in Alcatraz, and when he met him, he was in Butner. And he taught a meditation class that Rev Neusom came to. And over the course of that time, sitting with himself in meditation, he transformed who he was and eventually was released from prison. As Bo would say, he was the kind of guy that could say, somebody has to go in a prison on the other side of the country and they would be killed. He was that guy. And yet he transformed himself by looking and sitting in the seat of awareness through the pain and the suffering that comes with the inevitable realization of who and what you have done. Now, if you haven't ever sat in meditation long enough to be slapped in the face and held underwater by the very guilt and sadness that you have caused in the world, then you've hardly lived. And so when I think about the rebalancing that can happen with a person, some of that rebalancing will be our own self-awakening. That will be so painful, it may feel like your skin is being peeled off while you're alive. But what that rebalancing will do will open up the space for you to be a different person. And so the power of observation of your own being is so powerful. And yet, I will say, it will be the very thing you wish you had never had to do. But when you have passed through the eye of the needle, when you have made it through, you will be liberated on the other side. And though you may start out with millions of dollars or merely a 6x9 cell, the process is the same. The examined life is one that sets you free. But first you will see the dark side of yourself. And though that may not be happy, I know it may seem like a horrible experience. What it is doing is rebalancing you, bringing you into your own dharma, your own alignment with reality. That is a living balance where you know your sides, the happy, the good, and the bad. When you know your sides, and then you walk the narrow path of not two and not two. And you stand in your truth, and you are in your own way heroic. In your own way, you're rebalancing the world also. Because each of us is contributing to this planet and the energy that we feel in it. So when we take the courageous act of self-examination and do not get stuck, there's a threat in there too, and do not get stuck with overly guilty or shamed or anything, but burn through that as well. You come to this clear place where you see, and you see in such a way that you know what is yours to do and what is not. And this guy, Ray Neal, left Butner and has been a free citizen since. But he could not have been a good character in the free world with the same character that brought him into prison. And so self-examination, even though you probably haven't done anything close to what he has done, self-examination and being honest with ourselves is the path to freedom. It brings the balance. It brings us close to our path. It tells us that even though we have done, we are forgiven and we are free to move about. So let's make a simple declaration to ourselves that we will be absolutely honest about our part, and be willing to, if we have to, make amends, but more importantly, that we will see clearly another way of being. Let us pray. the power of silence, and letting the mind quiet, is that the old habits of our thoughts bear away and the truth is revealed. And if you have been too harsh on yourself, you may also discover that the thought and the experience that arises is that you are a beautiful being, loved as you are. And this play of life, you have not ruined anything. Or it may slap you in the face and say, hey, wake up, do it differently. But allowing the silence to speak is a pathway to awakening. It is my belief that when you really look, when you stare down completely, the light will shine on you, and there will be grace, and there will be joy that follows. And so it is. Amen.
I hope you got something out of today's service. We intend to bring you things that will help you in your life become more of who you want to be, give you the freedom of forgiveness and the hope of expectancy that your life will unfold in a way that brings you joy, happiness, and is a contribution to the world. If you would like to contribute to this ministry, please go to unitytriangle.org, hit the donate button, and it will lead you into an easy way of doing that. We thank you for your attention and look forward to seeing you again here.